that got me to the point where with my last book, Hunger for Death, I'm really proud of that and the way it came out. And it's a nice book. Looks great. It's got a lot of money behind it, but I'm proud of it. You know what I mean? And I'm not scared to show it to people and share it with people. And that's all it is a learning experience and improving. And you have to want to get better and you have to want to learn. And I've always been a very hands-on person. I've been self-reliant. So, anytime I can do something myself, I'll do it myself.
Hello, friends. I'm here today with author Joshua Marsella and author and podcaster Joshua Marsella now. Joshua, how you doing today?
Oh, good, man. It's great to be on this side of the mic, as I say, and it's almost like a mini little break for me. So it's great. It's always a pleasure to be here with you, Steve. You're one of my favorite guys to chat with on the webs.
I bet you tell all the booktubers that though.
All of them. Yeah, we get together in big groups, and I did.
So you've not only are you an author, but you're also started a podcast, Writers Unlocked, which is such a cool idea. It's such a great concept. How has that been going?
It's been going really great and surprisingly smooth. The idea came to me. I was bringing my kids I was bringing my older son to preschool, and I was kind of sitting in the parking lot or like the driveway waiting. And it just came to me. I was listening. I think it was like Neil Young or something. And I was like, why isn't there anyone talking about like music and writing? Because I see the conversation happening a lot online, but there's never been like an actual like podcast or anything that I'm aware of. So I kind of sitting there in the truck and I put a little post out thinking, this is something, would anyone be interested in this if I did something like that? And, not knowing how much is involved in doing a podcast. Obviously I have all the time in the world, so I said it, and then like, well, if you're interested, hit me up and we'll see if we can get something together. And then at the end of the day, I swear I had like 80 people, authors and writers that had hit me up. So then it's like, oh crap, now I got to learn all this stuff, but it's been really great. I've had a few people help me out with some of the details, but definitely a very pleasurable experience. Nothing I'm too stressed out about at all. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
It actually leads us into a question that Amy had on Twitter. It's related, so I'll pop it in now. She wanted to know what do you love most about the new podcast?
Honestly, a lot of us, we live on, we live our lives and we do a lot of conversing and building of friendships on Twitter, but it's mostly, it's basically essentially text messages and tweets and retweets, and getting to sit with someone one-on-one and actually have a real conversation with them, get to know them, hear their voice, see their face, their expressions, their mannerisms, all those things. They complete the human experience. And sometimes, myself included, like, when you read something online or on Twitter, you don't get the full perspective of how that person's trying to say something or what they're trying to say. There's no nuance. So that's my favorite part, is really getting to sit with people, you know what I mean? And learn about them. I mean, a lot of these people have become my friends, you included, and Amy. And it's been a very great experience for me. And it's also like, because I'm a stay-at-home dad, I stay with my two sons all day. I don't get out to hang out with people all that often, if ever. So that's another part of it that I really love, is just the adult conversation, and especially talking about like things that I love, which is like writing, books, music, and generally anything that comes up and during that conversation. So that's really my favorite part.
What surprised you most about getting them? Because you had so many people interested right away. What was the hardest part of getting it going? Like, what was the biggest obstacle you found?
Kind of just figuring out the logistics, like some people just do YouTube, some people just do a podcast. I kind of I wanted to do a podcast, but I personally enjoy video, and love
Mhm.
seeing people interact. You know what I mean? Because it has that, that you can see their eyes and their face, and just it's a whole different experience.
Yeah.
So that part of it was, how am I going to edit? How am I going to get all this stuff uploaded? I have to start a YouTube channel. I have to figure out how to do a podcast, how to get all these different things on all these different platforms.
Yeah.
And how can I do this without spending $2,000? And um, so all those things, I had to figure out within like a 3-minute period on top of, okay, so I have all these people that want to come on. How do I manage this? How do I schedule people? What is my schedule going to be like? Because you figure, if you have all these people that want to come on, if I did like one a week, that would be like the next 7 years. You don't want people waiting that long because people get disinterested. So that was a lot of it. It's just figuring out the logistics. I had all the, like the microphone and the equipment. I figured
Mhm.
out there's like some great open source apps out there for like the computer to edit with, which didn't cost me anything. Pretty much the only upfront money I had to spend was to get the podcast onto, like, sign up for your streaming host, is what they call it. Like, I think you use Buzzsprout, I use
Mhm.
Podbean,
Yeah.
which wasn't like, I didn't break the bank for that or anything. So yeah, that was it. I mean, just really figuring out all that stuff and how to manage all that and be a dad, write books,
Yeah.
read, which is very important, and still have time to sit and chill and play a video game and do nothing at night. But it's been great. It hasn't been super hard or anything.
Yeah. It's hard to find time to do all the things you want to do.
Yeah,
It's tough to
yeah, it
find
is.
time. How do you keep track of all your guests, because you have so many guests? How do you keep track of them?
So I started, I have like a very highly professional notepad on my iPhone. I basically just started writing in the name of all the people, and then I don't do like a first come first serve type deal. Like, what I try to do is, um, obviously there's people that are newer in the writing genre. There's people that aren't even published yet that want to come on, that are writers. There's people that have several books out with bigger presses. There's some middle ground people, and I consider myself like very low tier. So I try to, place people in like a tier system, kind of, as far as like how well known they are. And then I try to, space out each month with, um I'm trying not to do like all like super famous people all in one month, and then, because I want everybody to blend in. I don't want people to be like, oh, these are the awesome and these are the, so I try to like just pick at random, and try to fill in the month as best I can, and try to space them out throughout the month without, but obviously next month I just jammed them all. Like, I have like three in one week and 3 days in a row. But it is what it is. It is And the other thing is, if there are different time zones and stuff,
Yeah.
I have to make sure I can, figure out, like, one of my guests was from Romania, so that was like a 7-hour difference. And then, honestly, it's almost harder for the West Coast because they're in California, so I usually stay up later, um, like 9 o'clock, 9:30, which is like 6 o'clock, 6:30 for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
So, you find this balance, and but they're also great to work with. A lot of them, some of them, like if they're in an odd time zone, we'll do it on the weekend in the middle of the day, things like that. That's really been the biggest challenge, but it's been really easy. Like, once I get them scheduled, I put them on the thing. I even mark it on my calendar, and then we just go from there. And then if someone else messages me, I put them on the list, and I say, this doesn't mean you're not coming on for 2 years. I'll fit you in as best I can when I
Mhm.
can. And you figure 8 or 9 guests a month, it goes pretty quick. I mean, you start to
Okay.
chip away at the list pretty easily. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean about trying to to spread people out because you don't want it to be front loaded. You want all the people to get the same amount of attention.
Right.
So you want to
Yep.
get, spread things out and kind of give, really popular, and then you have the lesser known or the new people. It's a balancing act. And I don't think some people don't really think of it that way until you're there making those decisions, then trying to figure out what's the best way to, well, you, of course, you want to do it, you want to do the podcast, but now that I've put all the time into it, now what is the best way to deliver it? That's
Yeah.
going to be, you have to kind of, I don't think you really think about it until you're in that position. It's tough.
Yeah. And one thing that's almost helpful is when like a few guests will say, I'll say, hey, would you like to be a guest? Or they hit me up and say, I'd like to come on. And they'll say, I have a book being released in August. Could I come on maybe the end of July or beginning of August, do our show? And I'm like, absolutely. And that gives me some leeway. It gives me some, like, I put them on the calendar months ahead of time. I don't feel stressed that I'm not squeezing them in right away. So that's like a blessing in itself when, and I try to do that as much as I can because it's, free publicity for them. And a lot of them are actually actively looking for podcasts and interviews and blogs to get on to promote their book. So when I can get in early, that's great because then it's easier to squeeze them in and schedule them in than like that month be like, oh, want to come on tomorrow and we can, so
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
so it's super helpful when they do that.
Yeah, yeah, that is nice when someone's, "Well, I have a book in next October. Can you squeeze?" It's like, sure, no
Yep.
problem.
Hell yeah, man. That's perfect.
Yeah, it's a
I'll
lot
bring my
easier.
sweater.
Yeah, I'll be ready. And Amy actually had another question that is in the same topic is,
Sure.
which guest on your podcast had the closest musical taste to your own?
Hmm. Great question. Um, Honestly, there's been some pretty close ones. I'd say so far, Alex Woodrow, who was my Romanian guest. It was an excellent conversation, and we both have a strong fondness for concept albums,
Hmm.
and prog rock, and older stuff like that. And that was a very fun conversation to have. But I'm very eclectic, so I like all kinds of music. So most of my guests, I've had some musical connection with. But I'd say probably, we had a really great conversation because she's also a lover of vinyl,
Hmm.
and just the whole story of like the history with Romania and the how what she experienced back in the 80s. And if you haven't listened to that episode, I highly recommend it. It's not just because it's like a cool conversation about music. It's about the experience as a young woman in Romania
Hmm.
during under the leadership of a dictator who was publicly assassinated, and at the end of the 80s, and then that freedom that came to them being able to search for music, and you know what I mean. It's a very interesting, totally different experience than we've had over here in the States. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'd say probably Alex.
What a difference it must be to not be allowed just listen to music, just something that we take for granted, to not even be allowed to listen to
Hmm.
that, and then all of a sudden it's all there for you to look at and to listen to. It must be an amazing feeling.
Yeah, yeah. I can't even begin to imagine. It's pretty amazing, and we do take a lot of stuff for granted over here, and that's not to say like poo poo we're this amazing country, but we should be thankful for the things we have because it could just as easily flip and
Mm,
go the other way. I mean, you see them like banning books, and I mean, I'm lucky I don't live in a state that is trying to do that kind of stuff. My kids
mm,
can read whatever they want when they go to school, but it starts with books, and then it could move to music, it could move to movies. Um, so yeah, it's not that too far off for us if we're not careful. But
yeah,
yeah, it is a totally different experience, man. It's very interesting.
yeah, and it is a slow process, and it's you give up a little bit, and before you know it, it's gone feet when you thought it was just inches, and then it's out of control. So
Yeah.
you have to be real careful with that.
It'd be pretty wild, like going from like 2022, and maybe even going back like 25, 30 years to like our childhood and being like, seeing how different things were, like the whole pre 9/11 world was way more different than we can even imagine. And it's hard to even fathom it because, like you said, it's in little increments. And I'm not some like government conspiratorial guy. We've lived through it. We know what it's like. We were young, um, young and not jaded enough to where you kind of see these things happening right before your eyes, with new technology, the internet. So yeah, it'd be pretty wild.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's crazy.
Mhm.
And something I've noticed since I started recording is all the weird noises I make. Have you noticed any weird noises you make when you're editing?
Every time when I have to edit my videos, I go hello hello, and I go hello hello,
Oh,
and I do that a lot when I go I do that
yeah.
little click thing, and I'm like, and then I hear it, and then the other thing I noticed in my first couple of videos, blinking was like, and I think it was because I had an incense lit, and it's like blowing around, and I'm like, man, my eyes are dry. But I was like, oh my god, I was editing the first couple videos, and I'm like driving myself nuts watching myself blinking. So it was kind of funny, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, stop doing that. Like
Yeah.
I had to look away because I was like, oh man, you're gonna irritate yourself if you keep watching this. But
All these
yeah,
weird noises, all these weird things you don't notice. Yeah.
100%.
Like, do I really do that? Am I that annoying? I must drive people crazy. All the weird things I do. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah. It's wild.
I hope. Yeah, and the thing is, like, you think that, and then you talk to your guest or something, and they're like, "I didn't even notice," and I'm like, "Oh, thank God,"
Yeah.
because I did.
Do you use Audacity to edit with your audio?
Yeah, I use Audacity for my audio, and then yeah, what's it called? The OpenShot video editor
Hmm.
for the video, which is like my first, like I think it was my introduction video was very limited to what I had, and I think I used uh, Video Maker or something for the Windows Video Maker that you can't do transitions really or anything like that.
Hmm.
And then um, I got OpenShot, and I figured out, like, I had to Google like YouTube free open source video editors, and that was one of the ones that was um, highly recommended. My computer's really old, so it lags a lot when I'm using it editing, and it's frustrating. But that's just something that comes with the territory. Like, I'm not going to go out and buy another expensive PC. This one's like, I got this for free from when I was in school through Voc Rehab. They bought me a computer and stuff. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to use it until it shits the bed on me.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned on Twitter about saving all of your old files. Do you still do that? Do you save all the
I have so far, but man, I don't know. I don't see the need, but I'm also like I'm so worried, like what could happen to where I'd lose all that and have to re-upload everything, like nothing. But I have such a catastrophic like personality. Like, I think the worst is obviously going to happen when it's never happened. So, in all the times I've thought catastrophically. So I don't know. I don't know yet. I mean, I still do, because I'm only 16 episodes in. I'm not like hundreds of
Hmm,
episodes, like a lot of, but doing the audio wouldn't be a big deal, but it's the video that's like several
right.
hundred gigabytes per video, and the uploading of those videos. It started off like 45 minutes, like the length of the videos, but now they're stretching out to like an hour and a half was like the longest I did. Um, that takes overnight to upload onto YouTube the way I do it. I'm probably doing it the newbie way, but I'm sure there's much faster ways, and to condense them and stuff, but it works for me right now. It's not really a big deal to set it overnight and wake up in the morning and it's ready to go, until you
Hmm.
realize, like, oh crap, that transition didn't go, or
Yeah.
and then it's like
Yeah.
there's a couple of them, and then like I just redid my logo, so, which is fine. I mean, the first like most of the first videos have the old logo, but I'm not going to go back and re-upload every single one for, it's
Yeah.
people grow and they make new things all the time. So I'll just deal with it.
That new
The
logo is awesome.
perfectionist. Thanks, man. Yeah, that was Freddie Allen from Sweden. Me and him have become good friends. We kind of met last year on we did an Instagram live together, and we're just chatting, and then we started like chatting through Instagram, like video messenger,
Mhm.
and throwing ideas back and forth. He sent me this huge care package of like chocolate and all kinds of Swedish candy and like his book
Mm.
and a shirt of his book. And I mean, I was blown away. And his book is amazing. It's called Dalton Highway,
Mm.
and I highly recommend it. And but then yeah, so he's also an amazing artist. So he like painting, sketching, digital art. So I hit him up because I was like, dude, you're really awesome at this stuff. I don't even know if I still have it, but this embarrassingly awful sketch. I do have it right here in the garbage.
Oh,
um, so I did this and I
oh.
said, hey, Freddie, can you can you make this not look like garbage? And he said, yeah, man. And he like that night, because he's like 6 hours ahead of me, he emailed me and said, here you go, man. This is what I came up with. And awesome dude, amazing guy. I'm really glad we've become friends. We've toyed with the idea of if he when he gets back into writing and stuff like that, toying with the idea of maybe doing a collaboration. He had a really great idea for a book that I think would work amazingly as a collaboration. And that would be my first one. So that would be pretty awesome if it happens. So yeah, awesome
Wow.
logo. I really like it.
Yeah, it's really great. It looked really nice. It had that painter, like that painted quality to it. It looked had that like that. You can reach out and put your fingers on it, and you can feel the texture kind of feeling.
Yeah, and he also did the wraparound for my book because when Crimson Creek shut down for my collection, they gave me the cover art, which was very very awesome. But I didn't have any, I didn't have a spine, and I didn't have a back cover for it. So I was kind of like, oh crap, like how much is this going to cost me? How am I going to do this? And so I reached out to Freddie because he's just this awesome guy and he's very talented and he has all the programs. And he said, yeah, man, what do you want me to do? And um, I sent him a picture of a statue from a local cemetery here of a woman reading a book. And he took that picture and edited it and put it on the back cover with like my synopsis. And he did some of his Freddie magic. And he did the back cover and it came out amazing. And I was blown away. And he did that in a couple hours. So, yeah, man, we've been working together. I wish I had some friggin' skills to offer him, man. I keep feeling like this is a one-sided one-sided thing here, but hopefully I'll be able to like find something. Maybe I can like play him a song or something. I don't know. I'll figure out something I can do to make up for it.
And with Amy had another question that's related,
Sure.
somewhat related. Is you're super interactive with readers and listeners. What's
Hmm.
the best part of that?
Just human interaction. I've always been. See, I do that.
Yeah.
I still do it. I I've always had really low self-esteem, and I've always relied on like my humor and things like that to feel comfortable in my own skin.
Mhm.
So when people like actively reach out and want to compliment me or say they enjoyed my work or they listen to my show and they enjoy it and they comment on it, that means everything to me, and I want to pay that back in any way I can. If that means, saying thank you or just replying to them or sharing their review or something like that. Um, that's the very least I can do. And I'm so new to all of this. I feel like those early core fans, meaning anybody willing to read any of my books, are like they're the gold standard. They're like the most important people right now because odds are if they're here now, they're going to be there forever,
Yeah.
unless I really do something stupid to make them mad. But and those are the people that I really appreciate because they're the ones building my confidence early on.
Yeah.
Whether it's with my side project podcast or my real goal which is writing, which is still in the forefront. Like the podcasting thing hasn't like taken over that, but it's kind of like a nice side project to kind of go hand in hand with the writing, because it's a great way to network. It's a great way to meet new people, get people to know me better, get people to know other writers better, so their fan base may grow somehow. It's a way of giving back and paying it forward to people like writers that I admire, or you know what I mean. So it all comes hand in hand. And like I said, any way I can give back to people who are willing to not only buy my books but read them and talk about them, when there's like literally millions and millions and millions of other books that they could be reading. That's pretty amazing. And I think anybody in my position would feel the same way, you know what I mean? Or I like to think that anyway.
No, I think it's important to lift each other up, because I think you've said something that I've always remembered is a retweet doesn't cost you anything. You know, it's just a simple click, but it can mean a lot to someone. Someone can it can make someone's day, or it can get someone some attention that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And it's just a button. It's just a click. Just a click away.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes like you think no one's reading, or you think no one's, you know, because they didn't click like, or they didn't retweet your thing. But if you look at your little interactions, sometimes you had like 2 likes on a post, but 150 people saw your post. And if even one of those people said, wow, that looks really interesting, I might like that, I might buy that book. You know what I mean? They didn't have to say they bought it, but you could be helping that person, or anything. It could be like an artist, or, you know, a YouTuber or something. They might be another click. And sometimes it just takes 1 click and they're hooked. You know what I mean? And it's just getting eyes on something. Like sometimes I feel like I don't like to write reviews, because I feel like I'm terrible at them. But when I write them, like normally people are like, wow, that sounds really interesting. Even if I think the review is terrible, it's just saying what I thought about a book. And the best thing is when someone's like, man, I've never heard about this book, I'm going to pick it up, or now it's going on my TBR. It's like, you know, that's one more person that may read this book that could be a forever fan for that author. You know what I mean? And it's every little bit that helps. You know, even if you see someone out there, like the other day, I saw someone like 3 days ago posted about cover reveal for my new book, had like 1 retweet and 2 likes. And it's like, that's heartbreaking. Like to me, that would like crush my soul. Like I get upset when I have like 100 retweets or something, you know what I mean? And I'm like, damn, no one even cares. So that to me is like awful. So I'll instantly like retweet, or look at this cover, this looks amazing. And then you'll see a couple more people see it, because you just never know, like, you know, what sort of reach somebody has. And, you know, I went from having like a couple hundred followers, like the end of 2019 to like, I don't know, I have like over 6,000 now. And of course, like half of a percentage of those people actually interact with me, and the rest are like Mongolian bots. But I don't care. Like someone's retweeting stuff, somebody's seeing it. And if someone sees like a video of yours or a book of someone else's that I shared, that's awesome. I mean, it's at least worth a shot. Like you said, it doesn't cost me anything. Doesn't hurt. You know, it's not like, oh, like I'm endorsing this person. You know, I'm just saying, check this out, man. You might like it, you know?
Yeah. And the podcast is a way for you to reach potential readers too, because someone may listen to the podcast for music, say, well, I really like this guy. I'm going to go check out his books, and then they'll go buy all your books. So it's a way for you to reach people that you may not have reached before. So it's good. It's a good idea. Not only because you readers, but because it's fun, obviously. But
yeah. And I feel like, me personally, when I get to know someone better and I like them as a person, I'm more apt to support them and their dreams and their like what they're trying to do. Like if I see someone and they could be the best writer in the world, and they're currently alive, and they're just a jerk, and they're just spreading like hate and vitriol and just being a jerk, like I don't care how good of a writer they are, I'm probably not going to support them, and I'm probably not going to read their stuff. I mean, obviously, like looking back in the past, 100 years ago, some of the greatest writers of our time were absolute garbage humans in today's standards. And probably back then, I'm sure, because they were weirdos and they had like 2 friends that hated them, you know what I mean? Like, but we try to judge ourselves on today's standards and So when if I can show somebody that another person is an awesome human being and they're just trying to live their dream and write stuff and tell stories, that that's what it's all about for me. And like I said, I like to support good people and interesting people. You don't have to be this absolute shining, this statue on a hill of perfection. Just be a decent person, just try your best, and try not to hurt anyone's feelings. And I'm more apt to support you, and I feel like most people are like that.
Yeah, I think so. And you mentioned possibly doing a collaboration. Is would that be weird to because I would imagine because it's such a solitary activity writing it. So just you
Hmm.
in a room, you're on your keyboard or on your whatever you're typing on. So to share that with someone else, is that does that seem weird to you? Is that and it sounds exciting, but is it also kind of strange?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I've heard people that collaborate say the same thing. It's challenging, and it doesn't always work the way they expect it to, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. But sometimes it's fun to be challenged, and it's also a way to grow. Um, Obviously, I'm very new to the whole writing thing, and um, I'm still figuring out, like, I mean, I haven't even written my first novel yet. So me learning how, like, I'm currently writing my first novel, um, which is a completely different experience than writing a quick 100-page novella, to the point, and or a short story that's obviously like boom, boom, boom.
Mhm.
Um, so it'd just be another learning experience, learning how to collaborate, learning how to blend your voice with somebody else. But I can't imagine how like it would hurt me in any way. It would
Mhm.
be it would be a challenge, but I think, like I wrote a middle grade book last year, and that was probably the most challenging thing I've done so far because it's so different than what I everything else I do, which is like really dark themes. And um this is like trying to write something scary, but also kind of innocent and lighthearted and not too on the dark side. Like when I
Mhm.
talked to the publisher, he was like, you can ramp up the creeps and like the dark themes a little more. You don't have to be so like Barney, what I mean? I'm like, the bunny jumped out of the cage and scared it. It's like it's tough to find a balance, and it's all part of the learning experience. So having done it once, if I went to do it again, I would obviously be better at it,
Mhm.
and know what my limitations are. So it's just like anything else. Like if when I do it, and I've been asked about it before, and I would love to still like it was with Simon Paul Wilson,
Mhm.
who you've chatted with early
Mhm.
on. We were discussing doing a collaboration together as well, and I love Simon. I love his writing, and I'd still be all for it. But I'm just so early on in my writing career that I didn't want to take the leap into doing a collaboration right away because
Mhm.
I didn't feel confident enough in myself, and to do that, and then to like my next project was a collaboration with someone. I just kind of wanted to build a name for myself, build, my own voice as a writer, and then maybe step into it like that.
Yeah. No, that makes
So,
sense. Yeah,
yeah.
totally. What's you mentioned you're writing a novel. What's been the biggest surprise since you've been writing? Is this a change from writing a novella or a short story? What surprised you most about that?
Um, the pacing. I'm not in such a rush, and I'm able to take my time to breathe. Like I don't have deadlines. I've never really had deadlines necessarily, but because I'm self-published most of the time. I mean, other than when I'm in anthologies, but so taking my time, getting to know the characters, not feeling like I have to write every single night or every single day, letting the plot play itself out, finding ways to build on the characters without info dumping or filler plot. You know what I mean? Like that's my biggest thing because I'm not a big fan of huge, thick novels and that just have tons of filler that doesn't move the plot. Like I'm such a like my brain is just all the time, and to sit there and read something, I can tell when something's filler and when it's not necessary, and when it's boring the hell out of me. It loses me. So that's how I tend to write. And um, that's been the challenge is okay, I've finished the first chapter. I don't necessarily need to finish like the climax at the end of the book right now. I can take my time and build a world and have fun with it. And also, I'm writing a western, which I haven't quite decided whether it's going to be a western or a horror western. Which
Mm,
a lot of my readers are saying like, "Oh, is this going to be a horror western?" I love it when there's zombies and werewolves, but it's always with me. It's always going to be whatever it is. It is like if it's going to be a western, it's going to be a western. I'm going to write it. If it turns into a horror western, that's cool. I'm happy with that. If it's just a regular western, I just wanted a change of, um, you know, just a change. I want to challenge myself. I want to try new things. Um, Maybe one day I'll write like a fantasy.
mm.
Um, Maybe I love writing westerns so much I'll just write westerns from here on out, and my career will flop. But I'll love doing what I'm doing. But it's just you never know. You got to take it one day at a time, and so it's been fun though. I really am enjoying it. I'm taking my time with it and learning so much as I go. So and still, I'm still working on like some short stories here and there.
Mm,
Um, I actually have a short story coming out in a charity anthology with Dead Sea Press in like 12 days.
mm.
Um, it's it's called Terror in the Trench. Is the anthology with a bunch of awesome other authors. And it's all for charity, raising money for the Shark Trust out of the UK,
Mm.
which is an organization that um, raises money and awareness for sharks and their habitats, um, works to protect them, and just things like that. Awesome organization, um, and they actually have like three. I don't know if it's three, just three, or if there's going to be a fourth one too. But it's an awesome thing they're doing with Dead Sea Press. I love aquatic horror. I could write aquatic horror all day, and this story is actually the one I wrote for this is a prequel to a story I wrote for. I don't know if it's a prequel or a sequel. The whole timeline thing messes me up, but another one that came out last year, which was up from the depths, which came out right around like 2 weeks before my collection came out, which is one of my favorite and earliest short stories, The Ghost Ship of Chesapeake Bay. So
Mm.
it's based on a ghost ship, and it's aquatic horror. And when people read all my projects, they'll start to see characters from other stories and other books and stuff come together into all these different stories. It's kind of like the Stephen King universe. Like I'm obsessed with that, the idea of that. So you'll start to notice, like in my collection, there's characters from my first book,
Mm.
um, and I try to make it make sense. It's not like convoluted, like he came through a portal and now he's here. It's
Yeah.
like I try to make it make sense, and so it's that much more interesting for people. So people will see that with my western as well. There'll be some tie-ins to other stories that you wouldn't think would make sense, but they do somehow.
He came through a portal. That's the easy way, right? Yeah.
Right? He
Yeah.
he crawled out of the toilet and he's like, "What time period is this?"
Where am I? Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
And you mentioned you can recognize when things are filler or when things are don't need to be there in a book. Has that changed since you've gotten more experience writing? Have you viewed have your reading habits changed since you've become more and more experienced as a writer?
Um. Yeah. Like it's very strange because before I started writing, I was reading a lot of Stephen King, and this is no way like bashing King, but the more I read like some of his stuff, like um, especially like his earlier works, um, they're like six, seven
Mhm.
hundred page books, and you can tell when there's like a lot of filler, a lot of and I mean that's not to say that it's not part of the world building and the character building and things like that, which I do appreciate because some of his settings and characters are some of the most memorable in all of like modern literature.
Mhm.
Um, but we live in a very fast paced, like snippety snappity world. And I have two young kids at home. Um, I don't have the time to sit there and because like I sit down to read and I'm like 7 pages in and I'm out, and
Yeah.
it'll take me a long time to read So lately, I've been finding myself picking up my thin novellas and busting those out because it gives me a sense of accomplishment. Um, or if I do like a King book, I've been trying to get I have like all of his books in physical form, but I've been trying to like borrow audiobooks from the library because I can
Mhm.
like sit there and read those when I'm snow blowing the driveway or plowing the driveway or driving, wherever. As long as my kids aren't with me because they just want to listen to Rob Zombie all the time. But um, um, so yeah, I do like audiobooks and stuff like that. I also set my Kindle to read to me, which
Mm.
I figured out a way to do that. So if I'm sitting there at night, like playing a video game or something, I can listen to a Kindle book. Um, and it's just like an audiobook pretty much. I just listen to it with headphones and I can totally hone in on it. And so, yeah, I mean, when you start to, but also like writing this novel, I can kind of appreciate that too, because I'm building this big world. It's not like a quick little short story. You want people to be invested in this thing, and it's kind of nice having both. Like I started with novellas and stuff, and people said, like they really loved my characters in such a short period of time. It's awesome that you can develop them.
Mhm.
But it's also been fun to actually have time to spend with those characters because you write a novella, you care for these people that you created, and then you either kill them off or they're gone within like 15 pages.
Yeah.
So it's been nice to be able to like, actually spend time with these people and know you have like still another 3/4 of a book to spend with them or
Mm.
whatever. So yeah, it's been definitely a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, we know we talked a little bit about finding the time, and that's something that irritates me too. Is when there's too many tangents and too many like side stuff. It's like I don't have time for this. Like just get.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to be, like a short attention span. But it is a balance you have to find. Is when it's a 1,200-page book and there's 300 pages of filler. It's like it's kind of discouraging.
Yeah. And you can kind of notice it too with like, especially a lot of indie horror and stuff or indie in general, newer writers, they're all kind of gearing themselves towards that newer world. I mean, this isn't the world where Abe Lincoln sitting in front of a candle with 15 hours to kill in the middle of the night in like mid July or January. Like, you know what I mean? We're constantly bombarded with stuff,
Mhm.
and you could read half a page and then you get a tweet or you get a text or you get a kid puking on you or something.
Yeah.
It's very different times, and it's only natural that we adapt to those times.
Mhm.
And that includes literature. I mean, that includes art. That includes, I mean, the way we watch movies. And I mean, everything has to change eventually. And it's not a bad thing. It's just, um, adapting to it and being able to, and staying relevant. And, I mean, who would have thought, like, did you think like 10 years ago anyone would care about anything you have to say or want to record yourself talking? Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine it like a long time ago, doing the same thing, like, or anyone would ever want to read my words um, but it's cool seeing a lot of people taking chances and adapting to this new world we live in and finding cool hobbies or, things they can do on the side. It's a great, I think it's what's really cool about not necessarily just our generation, but uh, the future of people. Like we're doing the best we can with what we got, and as certain aspects of life get easier, we're finding interesting new ways to fill the gap.
Mhm.
And it's pretty neat,
Yeah, you
definitely.
mentioned the like modern, like our generation and modern times and everything. I wondered because you a lot of your books were during the pandemic,
Hmm.
if I'm right. So are
I
there
mean,
any
it's still
events?
going, so pretty much all of
Yeah,
them.
yeah. Now that
Yeah.
we're kind of seeing things open up a little bit more now.
Yeah.
So are there any things that you're looking forward to doing once we can do those events again?
um yeah, I mean, I like concerts. I like going to concerts. Usually go by myself, unless I have like a really close friend of mine. Um, that I have a good friend and like a cousin that I love going to concerts with. Um, I don't know. I went to a convention last year and I had a great time. I went one day, like most of the day, and then I kind of had like issues with anxiety. It was starting to get crowded, and
Mm,
so I ended up just hanging out in my hotel room, in my crappy roach ridden hotel room, the rest of the weekend, and just kind of enjoyed the peace, enjoyed the silence. Um, and went to a couple like bookstores. um I mean, I'm a really simple guy. I grew up in like the backwoods of Maine. I'm not used to like going to clubs or going to big gatherings or festivals, or I like I mean, I don't like quiet necessarily. I like quiet, but I fill that quiet with noise
yeah.
that I chose, not like other people. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's and just mostly I'm excited for my kids to be able to have experiences that
Mm,
they've been shut out from the beginning of their lives. And luckily
yeah.
they're young enough to where they haven't missed out on a ton. My oldest son is just going to be starting school in the fall, so he hasn't had to deal with any of the crazy pandemic school stuff with like
Mm,
Zoom and all that crap. And I'm hoping by the time he gets there, Maine has been really good. Like our numbers have dropped dramatically. They're pulling like mask mandates, and they've been very responsible with that type of stuff. So if they're saying like, you can like certain counties and stuff can drop their mask mandates and stuff, I trust that they know what they're doing. We have a very old population here in Maine, so if it was to really hit the fan, like half of our state would be dead.
yeah.
So they've been very careful, pretty good people around here. So that's for it. That's me. If for me, that's it. It's just mostly my kids getting.
Mm,
I like to take them to the aquarium or take them to the beach and take them to um, the museum. I mean, anything like that. Just fun experiences. And they're getting old enough to where they'll be able to enjoy those things as well. And
mm.
they're not just a goo goo gaga baby with their
Yeah.
pacifier. They're actually to talk and enjoy it and ask me questions, and so that's what I'm really looking forward to.
Any
Yeah.
any book related stuff like a book signing or something that you're looking forward to?
I mean, I haven't officially done a book signing for myself.
Mm,
By the time I plan something, I'll have like 7 books out. But honestly, I didn't really want to do like any big book signings until like, I mean, maybe I'd consider it once. Like if I get this novel out, and then I'm hoping that the next project of mine is going to be the third book in the Scratches trilogy.
mhm,
Um, I'm hoping by that time, I mean, that'll be like 6 books, because I also have the middle grade book coming out. I think it's going to come out midsummer or maybe early fall at the latest. They're doing their best. They're like the publisher's doing a bunch of different projects
mhm,
with kids and stuff. So I'm not in any rush for that whatsoever. But it's done. It's a project that's out of my hands. It's being edited. So by the time I have like 6 books, then I'll start really considering like, setting something up locally here in Maine. Maybe, maybe in like the next year or two, consider doing some sort of convention.
mm,
Um, all the money that I put into I get from my books, I try to put back into my books,
mhm,
because it costs money. I mean, you got cover art, you want to pay an editor. I'm actually buying a old refurbished Apple computer, so I can
mm,
use a very awesome program called Vellum, and I can format my own
mm,
books, because that's like a couple $100 a pop if you want someone to format it for you.
mm.
So anything I can do myself, I try to do myself. But like editing, hell no. You got to hire someone for that. Um, and so I'm trying to like build up a team of people I trust and I admire. Um, like, and I like to shop out different cover artists.
Mhm.
Um, because cover art to me is super important, and it's
Oh,
been
yeah.
a huge factor in like my books doing even remotely well. Um, so I've learned early on that that's not something I want to skip on. So that costs money, and so it would be cool to like do a nice book signing, make a little extra money, put that away. I mean, and obviously the more books I have out there, the more people can buy, and it basically all comes back around.
Yeah.
It's not something I don't make like profit off of it, but it's a side project. I do my absolute best to not make this my hobby of writing impact my family financially in any way I can. Sometimes like I have to get a little bit of help, but I always try to reimburse or work itself out in the wash. But because it's been good, and if it all works out, and I start doing better, that's great. Then my family will benefit from that as well.
Yeah. I've talked to a ton of authors, most of them self-published authors, and the more that I talk to, the more I realize, because I knew that self-publishing was work. I know that it was a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of effort. But the more that I talk to, the more I realize that it's expensive. There's
Mhm.
a lot of upfront costs. So that surprised me a little bit on how much it does cost to get a book out there ready for to put out there on Self Pub.
Yeah, so like cover art takes talent, and to do it good, not anybody can just go out there and anybody can do their own cover, but to do something that looks good, that fits a cover good, that pops out of the eye, that takes talent. Formatting is one of those things where there's a program out there that the people that have bought the program and invested in the program can use it. It's very user friendly. Like it kind of like talks you through everything, makes it very easy for you to do, but it costs money up front. And so I figured I could either pay somebody 200 or 300 bucks a pop to have them format my book for me, or I could invest 400 or 500 bucks myself
Mhm.
in this everything I need to do this myself, and you know what I mean? And then in the future, I won't have to make that expenditure. So those are the things I'm figuring out now. Like an editor, I'm gonna have to pay, and they're not cheap, and
Yeah.
for a good one. And cover art, I want to pay what the artist wants, because I respect and admire their work, and it's just as much work as anything else out there. So, and a lot of these people are parents and they're trying to raise a family, and I'm in no way, shape, or form trying to cut them short on something I can't do myself.
Mhm.
So that's the way I see it. And it does cost a lot of money. And and if you want to do it right, I mean, I could scribble together a little manuscript and do a little crappy little piece of cover art, and then go on KDP and submit it, and they'd be like, sure, we don't care.
Yeah.
And I could do that, but I respect my readers more than that. I've done several editions of scratches my first book, because I was such an amateur when I first put it out, and there was so many issues with editing and typos and formatting and all this stuff that I had no idea about when I first put it out. So I've gone back and put money into it and redid things and made it better, to where it's at the point where I feel it's a fairly respectable self-published book,
Mhm.
17 drafts, 17 editions later.
Wow.
Um, but that got me to the point where, with my last book, Hunger for Death, I'm really proud of that and the way it came out. And it's a nice book. It's looks great. It's got a lot of money behind it, but I'm proud of it. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
I'm not scared to show it to people and share it with people. Um, and that's all it is a learning experience and improving. And you have to want to get better, and you have to want to learn. And I've always been a very hands-on person. I've been self-reliant. So, anytime I can do something myself, I'll do it myself. And that means promotion and self-promotion. And I'm not ashamed to put myself out there and say, hey, check out my book, or please. And because you think people aren't paying attention, and they are, even if not everybody's buying your book or saying this. Like, I've been surprised at some of the people that have hit me up and said, hey man, I just read your book, and I really loved it, and I'd like to get a signed copy or whatever. And just never expect it. But because some people are quiet, and they're humble, and you know what I mean, they're not all over social media all the time. So
Yeah.
it's a nice surprise when that happens.
Yeah.
So
And I think a lot of people are just afraid to ask because they're nervous that, you know, because for me, even like I see Josh, you're like this famous author in my mind. You're like this, you're a big deal to me, you know. So I've
yeah,
read your books, you know, I have them in my hand, I have autographed copies. So it's a big deal for me. So I think most people are kind of like, well, I don't want to be a bother. I don't want to bother them. I know they're busy, kind of thing. So yeah, for someone
yeah,
to say, you know, I love your book, and you know, I want to buy a signed copy. It's a big deal for some people.
it is, and it's funny because on the other end of the spectrum, it's like, it's funny when it's funny, but it's also it's a great feeling when people say stuff like that, like, or like they're a huge fan of my work, or they're one of my like I'm one of their favorite writers. It's like, did you actually read my book, or did you read the other Josh Marcella? There isn't another one, but it's hard to believe, but it's and it is a good feeling because it's kind of validates what I'm doing, and it goes back to that question that Amy had, like, you
Mhm.
know, why is it so important, or I can't remember how it was framed, but like,
Oh,
what is it about?
interactive.
Yeah, just interacting with the people, because I don't see myself that way. I'm just a dude that sits at home and yells at my kids all day, and they yell back at me, and I write when I have time, and you know what I mean. I'm very new, and I have so much to learn. Just trying to make a name for myself. So yeah, it is, and it's all about perspective. You know what I mean? It's seeing it for what it is, and it's amazing that some people think, this guy's out there writing all these books, and I'm afraid to approach him. But that's why I try to make myself approachable,
Mhm.
and I try to say, like, hey, if you're having a rough day, I know we don't know each other, but I've been there, and if you need someone to chat with or something, um, you know what I mean? I'm here, even if you just need an ear to listen. Uh, we're all human. None of us are like, it's funny to me when people are like, oh, I just saw so and so celebrity. He was eating a sandwich at Subway. He was just so human, so down to earth. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, he is a human. Like, I understand, like, they're in movies and they have makeup and stuff, but I mean, obviously not everyone is like that, but I mean, the vast majority of people are like that, and they're trying to do their best to make it and do what they can do, and with what they got. And you know not everybody finds that talent that they have, or that they're not willing to take a chance, or they don't have time to take a chance to find what they can do in life that makes them happy. And I just consider myself lucky that I'm able to do something like this, and that people like it and I like it. um and hopefully I'm able to do something with it, going forward. Yeah,
I was so happy for you for during the. I think we were talking before we went live about Hunger for Death, and the last time we had a chat is just that whole process that you went through with the other publisher and then things fell through, and just that whole journey because you finished the book, and then it's almost like that's just the beginning of the process. Then you have
yeah,
to publish it, and you have to format it, and you have to edit it. It's such a long journey. So I was so happy for you to see that finally be out there, and we can all have it in our grubby
yeah,
little hands.
yeah, man. It's pretty devastating, but in the end, like, it was like the phoenix. Like, I feel like I came out stronger, and I had it in my control again. I had a lot of people up behind my back. Like, they had my back. They were like, hey, let me help you in any way I can. um, my friend Lydia, who's coming on my podcast on the next this month, it'll be like probably the week after she comes on, but she was gracious enough to edit it for me for free. Amazing job. We had like daily conversations about the book and stuff. And so from here on out, I've decided, like, you're my editor. You're the one I'm going to. Um, and she's like, "Whoa, okay." But because that's the kind of person I am. And then my pal Todd Kiesling hit me up and said, "Hey, man, I will format your book." He only charged me like half price, and came through. He's like, "As soon as your manuscript's done, send it my way, man. We'll get this thing out." Did an amazing job. Looks immaculate. Um, my buddy Freddie, like I said, he like busted out the wraparound for me. I mean, those are all things that when you go to do a book, you don't realize, like, that's the stuff that the publisher's doing behind the scenes. So when the ball drops and it's like, oh, okay, now I have all this stuff I got to do. Like,
Yeah.
they were nice enough to give me the cover art, but then it was like, now you need to find out who to format it, who's going to do this. Is it edited? Like, what story of the what uh, order of the story is going to go in? How are you going to market it? All this stuff was like, okay. And so I delayed it a month, and a month goes by very fast.
Yeah, it does.
um, so, but luckily everything worked out and it was gorgeous. Everything, all the additions worked out. And I still have a ways to go as far as like I want to get my books in more bookstores and things like that. But I mean, I'm still a small guy. I'm still new at all this. Um, Before you know it, like I'm driven. I'm expecting within like 5 years you'll start seeing my books at Barnes and Noble regularly and bookstores like that. I have the drive. I'm working on like getting better as a writer, building my name, networking. And that's like a goal of mine.
Mhm.
So I like to set goals for myself, even if they seem outlandish. I mean, and what I've done in like 2 years uh, already blows my mind that I was able to accomplish all that in such a short period of time with such limited time. You know,
Yeah.
so I feel like that's a good goal to have, and yeah, I'm going to work towards it.
Right on. Do you plan to self-publish your Western, or what's the plan for that one?
I'm not sure yet. It really depends on the book. I mean, if it ends up being a horror western or if it ends up being a western, um, I don't know. I mean, I'll have the tools ready to go to self publish it. Um, so I may just go that route. I mean, uh, I did come up with Cold Hands Press, which is my own self publishing label that I put my books under now. Um, which it looks professional. It looks really nice, and it is basically a press. I mean, I'm publishing my own books, so I wouldn't have any problem doing that. I mean, my books have done surprisingly well considering I am self-published. I'm a one-man crew. Obviously, there's amazing people like yourself and everyone else who's out there supporting me and trying to spread the word about my books, which is like, I mean, you can't. It's just awesome how many people are out there willing. Even like, still, I see people that I admire that are like, "Oh man, I just read your book." Like, it's like your first book that came out 2 years ago, and they're like, "I can't wait to read the next one." And just when you think you've been forgotten or you've been left in the dust or no one cares anymore, um, a new person comes up and says, "Oh man, I just read your book, and seriously, like, I'd read everything you write." Like I just got a review from Scratches the other day that picked me up out of the friggin', you know, the shambles of my self doubt and was like, "I would read the shopping list if you wrote it." I would read everything, and I was like, "Wow, that's amazing! Like, thank you so much." And it totally makes you feel, validated and confident. So yeah, man, I don't know. I think I'll do a little bit of self publishing, but I really would like to get back, try out another publisher. Obviously you get a little jaded and you get a little when something like that you finally get picked up by a publisher and you're excited, and then things fall through and you just have a nightmare of an experience. I'm not saying anything bad about the publisher. It was totally personal, you know, reasons that I won't go into for them because I don't even know. But there's no hard feelings towards the publisher whatsoever. They were absolutely gracious with just letting the contract, getting rid of the contract. They even gifted me the cover art that they paid for and
Hmm.
formatted for me. No questions asked. They just did it, and I'm forever grateful for that. I wish them no ill will whatsoever. There's some really horror stories out there that you hear from people like
Yeah.
they stole their manuscript or they never paid them or anything like that, which I don't think in a million years that would have been my experience with these folks. It just so happened that it was circumstances, and sometimes those things happen.
Hmm.
But that's not everyone's experience. So I don't want it to like put a sour taste in my mouth and be like, I'm never working with a publisher again because obviously that's not the norm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of scary. So if they weren't people who are on the up and up, could they have taken what could they have taken, and would they have ownership of the book or the cover, or what could they have taken from?
Well, so you sign over the rights, and then they have like it all depends on the contract and how it's worded. That's why contracts are super important when you're dealing with a publisher. Um, it's all a numbers game, how much they'll take in royalties, how much they're willing to pay to market. It's there's a lot to it, and that's why it's so important to not rush into something like that. Like it's exciting. Like, yeah, this person wants my manuscript. They're gonna give me an advance. Oh, this and that. And then you talk to your buddy, and they're like, oh, I got this huge advance for my book that's like 10 times what you got. And it's like,
Mm,
oh, and then they're also gonna do this and this and this. Oh, so you think something's great, and then you start looking into things more and more. And that's not this contract in specific, but like it happens with a lot of contracts. Um, you know, I looked through a contract from one of my short stories that I love, that I was like, I wonder what the rights are to this story. Because like with charity anthologies, 9 times out of 10 they say they don't keep the rights. Like they'll publish your story in this thing for charity, and then some of them will say, if you could give us at least a year,
mm,
or if you want to publish it in like a solo collection, um, like because some people like you publish it with them, and then they'll say, please don't publish it with another anthology, or you'd be hard pressed to find an anthology that would take a story that was just published anyway. But like I had one with my collection. They said, "Oh yeah, you can publish it in your own solo collection. Just give us the original publishing thing." Like
mm.
with Stephen King, it'll be like, uh, this story was originally published in Playboy,
Oh, right.
1973, short story. So that's kind of how that works. But um, so anyway, I looked it up, and I'm like, well, it doesn't say anything about ownership or rights. Um, so that's when like it gets to be a gray area, and you really got to figure out if it's not in the like what they say, like the four walls of the contract. They can't just make it up. So if it doesn't say, like, you can't just assume anything one way or the other. Um, so if it doesn't say, okay, we're going to use this for this anthology, we're going to sell these copies, and you get these royalties. If it doesn't say we hold these rights for 2 years,
Mm,
you can't just assume that. Okay, so if it doesn't say that, like, that's on them. Like they messed up, because then you can pretty much do whatever you want with the story. Um, you can't just assume like, well, they must mean like they have it for 5 years, because it doesn't say, or they hold it indefinitely, unless it says they hold it. That's contracts
mm.
are awful, no matter no matter. I was in the military, and I signed 7,000 contracts, and I don't think I
Wow.
read one word out of any of them. You
They're
know what I
probably
mean?
like this thick.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean, I mastered the book signing very early on in my military career. So that's that awful signature you see is my old army signature. um, but yeah, I mean, it's such a complicated process, and most authors are creative people. They're not logistical, contractual people, but you kind of have to put on that hat when you're dealing with
Mm.
that stuff, because that's your work, that's your baby. You don't want to get screwed over. you know it's
Yeah, it's scary stuff.
yeah.
To work so hard on something and then have it taken from you like that, that's terrible. It's awful.
Yeah, and I mean, 9 times out of 10, you hear nothing but good things. That's why I tend to work with charity anthologies more so, um, because there's no money involved. Like it's going to a good cause, and if I want to use that story in my own solo collection later that year, I can.
Mm,
Um, no questions asked. Like there's no hard feelings or anything, and so and then when you do like a paying anthology, and you're like, oh cool, I'm gonna get paid on this, and a year and a half later you've made $4.75. It's like, if I had just sent that for a charity anthology, I could have that money could have been used for better, and then I could reuse the story. So you know what I mean? Like you figure out these things as you go along.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I'm a very giving person, so I love when I can do like a charity thing like that, like this one with the UK, and I did one last year with Grinning Skull Press does one every year where they raise money with their Christmas anthology. That was my first like short story acceptance. I was so happy, but then I was able to use that story uh, in Hunger for Death. It was the Trailer Park Christmas story,
Oh yeah.
um, which a lot of people liked. So yeah, it's there's pluses and minuses, and obviously I make more money off my own solo collection than I do like anthologies.
Mhm.
Anthologies are kind of like clout builders. Like you get to say, hey, I'm in a table of contents with these awesome writers. Um, you know what I mean? Or I've published this many times, you know what I mean? And you could
Oh
have a stack of books, 10 books you're in, and you have one short story in each book, you know what I mean? Which is
yeah.
cool. But I also like to say, these are my 5 books, and I wrote every single one of them, and they're all
Yeah.
mine. And you know what I mean? That's really cool to me. Um, but definitely no, like I'm not saying like, you know, I also have a lot of anthologies that I'm in from the past couple of years, and I love seeing them on the shelf. It's cool either way, I guess.
Yeah.
you
It
know,
is cool to have both. Just to
yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah,
really great. And there's something that you had posted pictures on Twitter that I wasn't sure what it was, but it's like this little device. Um, it looks like a little
oh
tiny
yeah.
typewriter. I was wondering what that is because that looks really hard to type on.
So they're called Alpha Smart Neo, and
Mm,
what they were was in like I think it was like I don't know if they came out in like the late '90s, but they kind of got big in the early 2000s, just before laptops started becoming more accessible and like used in schools. They
mm,
were used for teaching to type. Um, and what they are is it looks like it almost kind of not too much different than my keyboard here.
yeah.
It's just obviously skinnier. I don't think it has the number panel. So it looked like this with like a digital screen, and it's a word processor. And what you can do is you
Mm,
can type on it, and it has like 8 different files where your F1 keys are. It says like file 1, file 2, and it has 8 files, and each file I believe can hold up to like 10,000 words, which I mean a novella is like anywhere between 20 to 30,000 words. A novel is like probably 50 to, I mean, 80,000, 100,000 words. So you can hold quite a bit on there. And what you can do is you can use this and you take it everywhere, and the battery lasts a long time. It's
mm.
very portable, it's very durable, especially someone like myself with kids. Um, they're not seeing this big lit up screen and they're like, oh, can I play Minecraft and touch
Yeah.
your screen, get their boogers on it. It's kind of boring and dull. And it's obsolete. Like they don't even make them anymore. So a
Mm,
lot of writers kind of discovered these over the past few years and are like, this is amazing. And what you do is so it does seem weird. Like you type in, you have this little screen. Obviously, there's no mouse. So you're just typing. You have to do a lot of back dot, dot, dot. And okay, say I wrote 1,000 words today when I was out in town or something. Um, so you pull up your manuscript on your computer or your laptop at home, and you open the manuscript and you set your cursor to like the blinking line, like you're going to start typing, and you
mm,
plug in a data cable into that thing, and then you plug it into your USB thing, and it'll say connected on your little digital screen, and then on the top right of your keyboard, um, there's a send button. You hit send, and it'll say, "Do you want to send this file 1 or file 2 to this thing?" And you
mm,
hit Y for yes, and then on your computer, you start to see it go typing out everything that you typed out in that thing. So it's
mm,
almost like having a spare keyboard laptop thing you can carry around. Like mine even has a awesome little carrying case. Um, I can bust out a few 10 words and then I walk away and go make a coffee and I come back and it's shut off, but it automatically saved. It doesn't waste
mm.
batteries. It's just like a secondary word processor. At first, I thought they were kind of like stupid looking and whatever. But since getting it, I mean, if I can bust in a couple hundred words in the morning, and then if I try to do a little writing at night, a couple hundred words at night, I got 1,000 words in a day. And that's great. For me, that's outstanding. So it's just a secondary word processing tool. And a lot of people over the past few years started getting into them. And then every time someone else sees somebody, they're like, "Oh, I want to go order one of those." So you can really only get them like secondhand on eBay. No more than like $100 at the very most. Like mine was like 50 something bucks. And I bought a data cable for it. Well worth it. You can't go wrong, as long as you have like, it's not going to be your like primary writing. You can't obviously format or anything like that with it. You just use it for word processing. It's pretty cool. I like it. It's called Alpha Smart Neo, and there's a Neo 2, which the only difference is there's some other apps that you'll never use on the Neo 2. So if you can get a Neo 1 at a decent price for anyone out there that's looking for it, check it out. They're on eBay. Very cool.
Are they hard to find, or are they pretty available on eBay?
They're not bad. I mean, there's a bunch of them. You'll just go on there and you'll be overwhelmed because there's so many choices and the prices vary. I just suggest look at the dealer, look at the photographs, check out the price, check out what they're offering with it. Like mine was a carrying case and the thing itself for like $52, maybe a couple bucks shipping. And all I needed was I didn't even buy it. There's an internal 2032 battery, one of those round ones. You have to take the actual back off of it. And you need like those torque wrench screwdriver things. So I just bought a kit of those, which I'll use for other projects as well, for like $10. Replace that battery because the internal battery is like a backup. So I think it's like 2 or 3 AA's that you use that last a long time. If those ever died and your backup battery was dead, you'd lose the project on your thing. And that's happened. Like Chad Lutsky and a few other people have told me. Brandon, my buddy Brandon said same thing happened to him, and he hasn't used it since because he was so bummed. So I was like, I am changing that battery. Brandon Scott, he was one of the ones I first talked to about it. And I was like, oh, okay. But then from the, first thing, but I guess the AA's last a very long time. So I'm not all that worried about it anymore. And then a data cable's like $7 or $8. So, yeah.
That would be such a bummer to lose your work like that. Because you forgot to change your battery.
Yeah. And I after hearing that too, I'm kind of in the habit of like dumping it at the end of the day plus it's cool to see, like, you get excited, you wonder how many words I've typed that day. You feel like you've done a ton and you upload it and it's like 205 words. It's like, oh, I thought I did like 2,000, but whatever.
Any word is progress.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's definitely true.
And Amy did have another question.
Sure.
She said, we know Oki, but what is the cat's name?
Autumn is my cat's name. I call her Kiki, Chichi. I have all kinds. She's not in here. She's usually sleeping in her tower, but we adopted her. We rescued her from the shelter. I don't know if it was my best friend, my dog Capone, died in 2012. He had cancer, stomach cancer. So we put him down, and I think it was about a year after that. We still had our dog. My wife's dog was a Yorkie, and we decided right before we got married in 2013, we kind of got interested in getting a cat. So we rescued her from the local shelter. She was skin and bones, like her hair was like falling out because she had a flea infestation and she was malnourished, but she was looking at us through the window and she was purring like crazy and pawing. So I was like, I think she picked us. And when we went in to visit her, I mean, she was the grossest looking cat you could imagine, but she was just love and like purring. And so we she's the one. So we took her home, and it wasn't but a few weeks. She started growing her hair back out, and now she's this big old fluffy, lovable tortie who tortoiseshell cat is what they're called. Sleeps with me every night. Like every time the kids go to bed, I sit down to read at night. She lays right on me, all fluffy and just purrs, and it's just awesome companion. So that's Autumn. We named her Autumn because we got her. That's like our favorite season, and right before, I think we got her like the end of August. And we're like, just call her Autumn. I was like, okay, let's do it. Long story short, I know it's a long story. I'm a storyteller. I can't help it.
Oh, good. It's good. And
But
there's
yeah,
nothing like adopting an animal like that and having
yeah,
them from being malnourished and lonely and sad, and then you bring them back to life. That's really
yeah.
rewarding.
And Oki, we actually got him from. He's a purebred Yorkshire, not Yorkshire, Australian Shepherd, and we had been looking because obviously it was pandemic. We lost our other dog, our Yorkie Oasis, right before Christmas. 20. So this is just before the pandemic. Like total surprise. She just started failing and wouldn't eat and lost all kinds of weight and was lethargic, and it was just heartbreaking. And here we are with two little boys, very young at the time, and the pandemic just kicked off. So we were looking at shelters, wanting to rescue, a rescue. I mean, 10 times out of 10, it was hard to find a dog, but every dog we did find that we thought would be a good fit, it said no homes with kids, or they're very high needs, or like, they're very high maintenance. They need special needs, things like that. So we were like, we're never going to find a dog, and we're very much animal people. So we ended up finding out like the Aussies are a great family dog. They're herders, so they're good with kids and stuff like that. And we did find a local breeder around here who's well respected, very she's like she does a great job. And because there's a lot of like shady breeders out there that are garbage.
Yeah.
So we went through her, and she helped us pick out one of the dogs. They're very hard to get because they're such amazing dogs. And I mean, we couldn't ask for a better dog than Oki. He's just hilarious. I mean, he's very mischievous at times because he doesn't get a lot of exercise right now because of the weather and winter. But he's always there with our kids, keeping an eye on us, and he's friggin' awesome. So I love him. Good dog.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
And Noel Zamat, he's a fellow author, or fellow for you. Now I'm not an author, but author. And he had a question. Since you're a mariner, or a Mainer, sorry.
Yeah.
What qualifies a proper poutine?
So poutine is very much Canadian, but Maine has been adopted by Canada recently. No, we're very French up here. So, in fact, like the further north you go, you start to see like French signs and things like that. Like we're like 2 hours away from Quebec. So I actually have friends from Quebec, as they would call it, I believe. I don't even know. I'm actually like 97% French Canadian. I don't even know. But no, so obviously nice thick fries, and you fry them up, and then they actually up in Canada have a specific poutine gravy that they use that's delicious. But I mean, really, any sort of beef gravy, like a thick beef gravy, works great. And you have to get the big old cheddar cheese curds. Most grocery stores sell them. And the way I do it is you fry your fries. I mean, any sort of fry is okay. You can just do French fries. You don't like frozen French fries. I mean, you don't have to get all like hardcore about it. Fry your French fries, get them nice and crispy because they're going to be going in gravy. So you get them all crispy, get them nice and hot, get your oven really hot. And then if you have an air fryer, that's the best way to go. Put them in a pan, You cover them with gravy, and you drop the cheese curds on it, and you throw it in the oven till the cheese is melted, really, and the gravy's bubbling, and then pull it out, man, and enjoy. You don't need any dip or nothing. You just eat that. Eat it like it's the food of the gods that it is. I love poutine. Um, yeah, it's funny. My friends from Canada, they're huge Stephen King fans. That's actually how I met them, was through a Stephen King Facebook group that I was in years and years ago, and so we've become like family. They've come to Maine a few times, and in fact, they mailed me two. I mailed them like my first book when it came out. We had them a little care package, and I mailed it to them, and they mailed me back two like tubs of dry poutine gravy mix, like actual French poutine. I can't even read the label because it's all in French. I could probably guess, or Google could translate it, but very cool. And so yeah, they do have authentic gravy, but I mean, when you're from the States, you just use beef gravy or something. And there's some restaurants around here that actually do really good, like duck fat French fries with poutine. Like they instead of like just regular oil, they fry the fries in duck fat, and
Oh my goodness.
so good. They taste like fair fries, which I don't know if anyone knows what fair fries are outside of Maine, but very good fries. Like made in a greasy ass van that on the side of the road. The best stuff.
I got fatter just listening to that. Listening to
Right? I know. I have diabetes just thinking about it.
I loosen up my belt already. So I think well, I was going to ask you about your favorite family recipe, but would that be your favorite family recipe?
As far as poutine or anything?
Anything, just any food.
Um, well, it's hard to say because my favorite recipe is not my family's favorite recipe. My kids will literally only eat noodles and soy sauce or pizza rolls. Um, and my wife doesn't like, she goes through phases where like she won't like broccoli for a few months, or she doesn't like chicken for a few months. So my favorite recipes are they're always my favorite recipes, but one that not many people probably know of. It's not a blood relative family, but it's family. It's my best friend's grandfather, and it's the weirdest thing you could ever imagine. But you cook egg noodles, you just like normal, you just boil them, and then you take kielbasa and you cut it up into however big pieces you want. You could do like, cut it in quarters and then slices, and put that in with the pasta. You could boil it first. Probably that's the best way to do it, and then cut it up, and then just throw in cottage cheese.
Hmm.
And it shouldn't work. It doesn't seem like it would work. This was the guy that taught me how to make um, cabbage rolls, stuffed cabbage rolls, um, like the best. I still haven't ever had scrambled eggs as good as he used to make it. I called him Gramps. He's forever my Gramps. He's passed away years ago, but awesome guy, awesome cook. He was like Slavic was like his family heritage. And so a lot of his cooking was from that tradition. But that on top of my Italian heritage, which much to my chagrin, I found out I'm only like 3% Italian, even though I my name's Italian. I have a family tree going back to the 1700s of my Italian family,
Hmm.
with names like Luigi, Emilio, uh, Princess Peach. I mean, we have names going back, and I know like three people on the French side of my family, but I'm like 93% French Canadian. So
Hmm.
figure that one out. But yeah, so I learned a lot of those awesome little recipes like that have always been really special to me. Cabbage rolls. He used to make big batches of stuffed cabbage rolls, even when my best friend and I, we're like brothers. We've known each other since we were like 2 or 3 years old. Um, he like moved to Winthrop, which is like, a little ways away from where I lived, and he would always make an extra batch of those cabbage rolls and put them in a Tupperware dish and save them for me. And whenever I see my best friend next time, he'd be like, "Hey, Gramps made you some cabbage rolls." Or he used to
Nice.
make these awesome like cinnamon nut rolls around Christmas time. And he'd always have 2 big bags of them, like jam packed Ziploc bags filled with them to give to me. If I hadn't talked to him for 2 years, he'd still make me cabbage rolls or make me, so one of those people that, you'll always cherish, and, you'll never meet someone like that again. But
Mm.
it was just a great father figure to have in my life. Um, I learned a lot of values from him, and, really awesome guy. So grateful for Gramps. So that's one of my favorite recipes. It's simple. Try it sometime. It shouldn't work, but it does. It has to be egg noodles, cottage cheese, and kielbasa. And you
Hmm.
can thank me later. A little salt and pepper goes a long way.
Hmm.
It
Sounds good. Sounds interesting.
is. It's bizarre, but it's I love it.
Yeah. No, it sounds really good. Yeah, I've gained a ton of weight during this conversation for sure.
Mhm. I've gained a ton of weight during the pandemic, so I hear you.
Yeah, it's been tough. Definitely.
Yeah.
And the time always flies, man. Whenever I talk to you, it's just like you blink and it's like an hour and a
I
half
know.
past.
Yeah.
So for people who want to connect with you, where's the best place to find you?
I'm most active on Twitter. I think I'm the only Josh Marcella in the world. But I mean, you can't mistake me. My profile, I think it's just Joshua at Joshua Marcella. Um, I have a pretty inactive Instagram, same thing. I think it's just at Joshua Marcella. Facebook. If you look me up on Goodreads or Amazon, you'll find my books and short stories and all that stuff. And my podcast is called Writers on Wax. If you're interested in checking it out, tomorrow we'll be dropping our 15th episode, which is with Marty Sharp, who was a actor and screenwriter from the movie Lake Mungo, which is one of my
Hmm.
modern favorite movies that fell into obscurity and has come back with a vengeance. So great episode, awesome guy to chat with, absolute delight. So check that out. That'll be dropping tomorrow. And then next week is my interview with Brian Keene and Bev Vincent, which they were also awesome guests. But there's also a 15 other guests that were absolutely amazing. And I can't even believe I've done that many episodes already. But I want to go to sleep just thinking about it.
Yeah.
I've already gained 10 pounds just thinking about it. But yeah, so those are all the places you can find me. Check it out. Give me a follow. I almost always follow back as long as you don't say "Hey, handsome" in my DMs or try to send me some weird picture of something, some body part I didn't need to see. Um, keep it civil, and I'm usually pretty cool.
Yeah, keep it clean. Yeah, keep it clean
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Life
And
of
I
a
yeah,
writer.
I got a bunch of different books out there you can check out. I have more stuff coming down the pipeline. If you ever check out any of my stuff or any books for that matter, reviews are like gold, whether they're 1 star and negative or they're 5 stars and glowing. It doesn't matter. Anywhere in between is absolutely amazing, especially for indie writers who are like really struggling to get a name for themselves out there. Um, so yeah, if you can do reviews for myself or anyone else, Steve knows just how
Good.
valuable they are.
Yeah. It's
Yep.
incredible how much of a difference they make. Even bad reviews, like
Yeah.
you say, can because sometimes I'll find a book that I'm kind of like on the fence about, and someone will say this book is too dark or too violent. I'm like, okay, bye. You know.
Yeah.
So hey,
And that's the thing. Like reading is totally subjective, and that's why they say, and reviews are for readers. But early on, like when I first started writing, I read like every review that came out, and I learned so much on how to improve my own writing, um, my strengths, my weaknesses, and I use them to improve myself. And now I don't read them so much, um, just because for whatever reason I don't have time, or you just get so far behind because you don't notice. I check the numbers like to see like how many reviews my books. If they dwindle off and I'm not getting as many reviews, I try to do a little promotion here and there. But No, they absolutely are for the readers, and we have thick skin. Don't be afraid to be honest. People want to know, because like Steve said, if you may not have loved the book, but what you didn't love about it, Steve might like. If there's a
Yeah.
lot of bestiality and stuff, that's right up Steve's alley. So he's gonna. No, I'm just kidding. Steve does not endorse bestiality, but but no, I mean, yeah, there is some crazy people out there that may like things you don't. So, you know, they definitely help us out.
Yeah,
So
make the bestiality community happy. You never know what
yeah,
that
I think
brings.
I was talking to somebody about my next book is going to be a space zombie erotica or something like that. I was like, I bet that would sell. That'd be like the next Chuck Tingle book that would sell 1 million copies. Sell it for
Oh,
99 cents on ebook and
I would read
ebook
that.
exclusive.
Yeah, that'd
Yeah,
be
hell
awesome.
yeah.
Hell yeah. So I know you're really busy, have lots of stuff going on. So I really appreciate you taking the time to. It's always a pleasure to chat. I didn't even
Yeah,
prepare
yeah.
questions, so it's just really easy. It's just like hanging out. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, sometimes I watch your videos just to learn because I have like the same 4 questions I ask every show, and I'm like, and then watch your videos, and I'm like, this dude knows what he's doing. Like
I
he's
have no idea what I'm
your
doing.
your composure, the way you ask your questions. Like I stumble on my words all the time, and I'm like, I'll be like, thanks for listening to Writers on Wax. We have
Oh,
uh
oh, yeah,
and I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm saying goodbye.
yeah.
So no, it's always a pleasure, man. I really do appreciate you having me on, and it's nice to just chat with you, and not have to have questions lined up or feel pressured. You always make it very very comfortable. So I'm always willing to come chat with you, man, anytime.
Right on. Mission accomplished. Yeah, I like it to be real casual and
Yeah.
easygoing, nothing too rough. So that's good.
Yep.
That's good to hear. It makes me happy.
Yeah. Hell yeah, man. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, right on. So thanks everybody for listening and watching, and we'll talk to you soon. That's again, Joshua.
Thank you, everybody.